Howdy, howdy. Thanks so much for that intro. What is up, everybody? Thank y'all so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I could say thank you a million times, but again, thank you, thank you, thank you. We are here for our LatinX and Twitter panel. Twitter's goal is to be the most diverse tech company on the planet, like period. We hope that after this panel, some of you guys were considering joining the block and bring your unique culture, your background, your experiences, and help us accomplish that goal. Today, you're going to hear from three really dope Twitter employees who we all call Tweeps. And they're going to share, what it's like to be Latinx at Twitter and how they bring their authentic self to work every day. Now, for me, my name's Jordan. I'm a cisgender Black male. I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. I went to University of Central Florida, where I studied musical theater and culinary. And now I work as a recruiting coordinator here on the early careers and interns team. Now, what do? We basically build a pipeline of talent of candidates across undergrads, masters, PhD, and people who have 0 to 2 years, work experience for all of Twitter. That's engineers, that's consumer, that's corporate functions, policy, law, legal. Basically, whatever you want to do, there's a spot for you here at Twitter. Take it from someone who studied culinary, there can be a spot for you here at Twitter. Make sure that you guys are staying active in the chat because my girl Amber is going to be engaging with you guys down there. If you have any questions that pop up throughout the panel, just drop them there and make sure you stay until the end because there might be a chance to win some swag. I'm currently rocking my You're on Mute sweater that I got from my team last summer. So, we give out some pretty cool stuff. Now, I could talk about how dope Twitter is literally all day, but instead, we got a video. So let's go ahead and check that out.
I love our work for a lot of reasons, one of them being impact. The work that I'm doing is super interesting, developing machine learning models. To be working on such challenging problems, you definitely need a supportive team, and I've got a really great team here, and the culture is amazing.
I love where I work because of the people at Twitter and the openness of it all. I think Twitter is a very unique place and my experience has been definitely positive. Working at Twitter in a hashtag blessed, because like every day I come, I feel fortunate to be like an employee here and I love the work that I do.
Twitter Open is our LGBTQ VRG here at Twitter, and I think it's really important to have that representation of LGBTQ people in the workplace.
So I'm involved in Twitter Alas, which is BRG for Latinx individuals at Twitter. And there was a few events that I went to last summer, which was really interesting. Met a lot of really smart, really cool people, and still talk to them today.
I love that video so much. I think it's like such an accurate representation of what it is to work in Twitter. We all really do love each other. Speaking of love, I am going to introduce you guys to your moderator for today. So, driven by creativity and ambition, Elena Rivkin has diversified her personal career through her work in nonprofit, higher education, and within the tech industry. As a recruiting coordinator for Twitter, Alana, sorry girl, I did it again. Alana facilitates the hiring process for software engineers who support the customer serving functions here at Twitter. Aside from her current role, Alana strives to, connect people with the highest potential through personal and professional leadership development, or solving powerful stories and resources to help make lasting change. Everybody, please welcome me, moderator, that I butchered her name 3 times in one paragraph.
Thank you, Jordan. No worries at all. Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. We're super, super excited to have you today. So like Jordan said, my name is Ilana Rifkin. Pronouns are she, her. I am originally from New York, but I currently sit in Rhode Island. I saw there was one other person in the chat also from Rhode Island. So super happy to not be the only one representing this state here, the smallest state in the country, but one of the best, I must say. But enough about me. I'm here super, super happy to introduce three amazing tweeps that we have here today. I'm gonna pass it over to them just to give you a quick intro, and then we're gonna dive into some questions. So whoever wants to take it away first, Christian, if you'd like to go first, tell us who you are, what your role is at Twitter, how long you've been at Twitter, a little overview of what your job is, and then what university did you attend? Because I know we have a ton of universities represented today.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ilana. I was trying to summarize myself in the moment you're asking this question. So my name is Christian Hurtado, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, currently in the San Francisco office, Twitter HQ. My family is from Cali, Colombia. So any Colombians on the call, what's up? And I'm an apprentice at the Media Foundation client web team. What that means in short is if you're on your desktop or laptop on the Twitter app, anything that has to do with the video, that's my team. We do maintenance, caption, like closed captioning work, volume and API calls. And I'm gonna try to recall what you asked, but in terms of university, I went to Hunter College in Manhattan. And after that, actually, I went to Pursuit. It's a coding bootcamp in Long Island City in Queens. I started September 2019. It was a 10-month thing, and then December 2020, Twitter set us up. And so I've been here since February 2021. It's been an awesome year. And yeah, I'm all ears for any other questions. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Matias. My pronouns are he, him. I was born in Argentina, raised there too. I attended the University of Buenos Aires over there. After that, I spent 5 years living in Paris, and now I'm currently based on Twitter in London. I've been working here for the last about a year and a half, and my team is dedicated on building Twitter for professionals. So this is a completely new ecosystem that we started about pretty much when I joined. And we started this project from scratch, and the idea is to provide a new set of features for these so-called professionals so they can identify better themselves on the platform. My role there is as a backend engineer / a bit of a tech lead on that team.
Okay, I guess my turn now. So, hey everyone, my name is Kenny. I'm actually from Mexico City. I studied in my undergrad in the Tecnológico de Monterrey and my grad studies in Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. I'm currently a manager at the Observability Organization, which is an organization that works behind the covers to make sure that all the engineering teams within Twitter are able to see how their systems are performing and measure the usage, failures, or anything else that can be measured on their services to make sure that Twitter is always up and that it's always performant and that we are always providing the best experience to our users by understanding how certain features work.
Awesome. Great intros, everybody. Thank you for being here. Super excited to dive in a little bit more in terms of your background and sort of what got you to this space here at Twitter. I know we're joined by many university students today. So my first question, I'm going to direct it back towards Christian. First and foremost, what made you decide to go to a university as opposed to a non-traditional route? I think one thing that we know, especially in 2022, is that college is not the only path to start a great career. So I'm curious, what made you decide to go towards that university route? And when you were at school, what did you study?
It's actually funny. While I was in undergrad, I did music theory and education. So before turning into tech, I was a music teacher for an after-school program in the Bronx. And actually, I did take an untraditional route to tech because I did a coding bootcamp. I was weary of how I can do a 10-month, program, take a 4-year degree and scrunch it into a 10-month program, right, or a 2-year degree, and get quality education. But I guess I'm proof that it worked out. It was something I read a lot into before I left my last job and decided to take the leap of faith and to date, it's one of the best decisions I've ever made, if not the best.
Yeah, definitely. So on my side, it's a bit interesting because I actually started working before I started university. So I learned how to code during high school, and my first job in software engineer was when I was 18 years old. So basically I grew up with my working skills at the same time I was attending the university. So it was a bit of a special path on that way. And for me, what the university represented was a bit of a background, a bit of a deeper technical understanding on why I was applying on my job every day already.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think both of your stories sort of represent the fact that there's not one path to get to this space, and somehow, both of you ended up here today. And I think this should be, in some regard, an inspiration to know that whether or not you're in a field now that feels connected to where you're going to be in 10 years, or whether you start in music and you end up there, or start here and end up in music or film, like myself, I studied film and I'm in tech now. We all come from different spaces, we all come from different backgrounds. And so it's great to hear that, not everybody came from one path and is going to continue on that. So that's really great to hear. My question would be, what advice would you have to somebody looking to break into your specific field, especially being at the university level now? What can they do early on to sort of best prepare them for the field that they want to enter into? I'll direct this one towards Kenny first.
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the most important things is that you should pursue internships, or at least pursue some personal projects so that you get involved in these things. The truth that I found personally is that the academia only really prepares you to learn how to do this kind of like job. Really, the job that we do in software engineering is try to solve problems with very interesting ways to do it. But we don't really learn in that job, we don't learn in the academia how to solve the specific problems that we will find in a day-to-day basis. So the more that you can actually experience what it is to be a professional engineer before you actually graduate, the best you're going to be prepared for these kind of challenges when you actually do find a job in a full-time position.
That's a great point, for sure. I'm curious, did you start in an internship, or did you do any internships during your university career life, Kenny?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of funny because I did do 2 internships. Mine internships were not at Twitter because back then Twitter was not recruiting in Mexico City, but now it is. So now it is a possibility. I did my internships at Microsoft, which back then was the only company that was actually flying over to my university to do recruiting in campus. But even before that, I got rejected from my first internship when I was a freshman. And what I decided to do with my summertime was actually fund a startup. And I started to do consulting work for other companies that were trying to do invoicing online. So even though I didn't get an internship, I said like, okay, I cannot waste this time. And I just funded my own startup and I started to get customers, paying customers actually. And I started funding my own things and funding whatever I need to do during college.
Wow, that's really awesome. It's cool too to see, the internship sort of approach, and it doesn't have to be at the exact company that you want to work for. It can be a stepping stone. The fact that all of you are here today to learn about opportunities that we have for internships is proof that you're already on the right step, already on the right track, regardless of whether or not you end up getting an internship within Twitter itself. But it's great to hear from you, Kenny, that your path has led you here, and that you had a couple of different opportunities along the way as well. I'm curious to also jump over to Matthias to see if you had done an internship, and also what your advice would be for somebody entering the field.
Yeah, so I haven't done an internship. For me, it was right directly into the job since the beginning. So for me, it was right up to that. But I think a bit of the advice and a bit of my personal experience is pretty much related with Kenny, on the sense that you are going to try a lot of different things, and our field is so wide and we have so many things and you can specialize at. Then I think that's probably the very first thing that you want to do, is to try to learn about yourself and what you like doing and what part of the job is what you enjoy to do every day. We have different type of clients. We have backend, we have different types of backend, we have data engineer, you have data science, you have a lot of different roles today that you can apply to or that you can work at. And I think that's something really nice to discover about yourself once you have these initial steps as a software engineer.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that perspective. Christian, if I'm not mistaken, I think you had started out in an apprenticeship at Twitter. Is that right?
Yeah. So I'm currently due to promote next quarter. So very exciting. Yeah, I came in through the entry-level apprenticeship program. It was it's been a very informative experience. You know, thankfully, I'm not just saying because I'm just an apprentice or an apprentice, but like everyone here at Twitter is so helpful. Like there really are no dumb questions. For like perspective, when I learned how to code, I was coding in Swift, the iOS language. So I made iOS apps. And then I got put on a web team where it's JavaScript, React, Redux, a whole bunch of things that I've never done before. But like as I believe, I'm sorry, I forgot if Matthias said it, but like how this job is really about like finding answers. It's about problem solving, creative problem solving. It's like you will not know. It's impossible to know all the answers to like everything you're going to come across just inherently, but it's about solving problems. It's about problem solving and searching and researching. So yeah, just it's pretty cool to have Twitter as my very first career tech job. So looking up, I guess.
Yeah, I would say so. No, that's awesome though. The problem solving piece is huge. I think in any role, especially within a tech company of this stature, you kind of are a problem solver, whether you're an engineer or you're in recruiting or you're in some different field completely. Working for this company allows you to really collaborate with others to solve creative issues. So I appreciate that you highlighted that for sure.
Yeah.
I want to dive in a little bit on what made you choose Twitter specifically for your career in this next stage of your career path. So Kenny, I know you're a manager level. Where did you start when you came into Twitter? Did you start in your current role? And if so, or even if not, if you started in a different role, what made you choose Twitter and what made you stay?
So I actually started my role at Twitter as a senior software engineer. So I did transition into an EM role in around 9 months. I was moving to that role. But the reason why I actually chose Twitter is because being a slightly smaller company than the one that I was on, I had the chance to actually make an impact, right? From a professional perspective, it's really important that you never stay where you are comfortable, and that you move where you can actually make a bigger and bigger impact all the time, right? So sometimes you have to find like different company sizes that do that. But it's also important that the company's mission actually resonates with your personal values. And when I was thinking about my next move, Twitter was one of those that actually resonated with me by serving the public conversation, because it was very important for me to work for an ethical company that actually like shows all the values of inclusion. And I just wanted to quickly mention why apprentices are important, which is what Christian was saying about. As a manager, I think that having apprentices is actually one of the best things that we can do as a company, because it brings a lot of diversity into our pipelines. Diversity is not just about like, sex, color, gender, whatever. It's also about having diverse opinions. And by bringing people that are passionate about technology because they actually went through the effort of doing like a coding bootcamp or any other kind of education so that they're passionate, they're also going to bring unique perspectives to solve the problems that we as people that were on a more traditional path of going to college for a particular major do not have, right? So that diversity of opinions really help a company be stronger.
No, that's great perspective. I definitely agree with that. I think that it's never too early to learn. It's never too late to learn. And I think a big motto for me is that I'll never be done learning, right? So even if you start in one space and you have the opportunity to transition to a new role like yourself, or if you're become interested in a different field, or if your apprenticeship leads you to something completely new, I think that key to know that you can always learn more is really, really crucial. Christian, you have something to add there.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on it because you said you're never too late to learn too early. Um, I think that this is like just slightly parallel. I think that that vision and that idea is so important because just before I made the decision to do the coding program, the fact that it was 10 months long was daunting. I'm like, oh, this is gonna take forever. But then one night I was like, in 10 months, I'll either have done it or I wouldn't have done it. Hopefully I'll still be alive. And that'll just be the difference. I'm either doing the same thing I'm doing, or I'll have this skill that's super lucrative and important. And not thinking about time as so immediate, but just having the patience and with yourself to learn a new skill and realize that the time will pass. Literally, my life changed in 15 months from when I decided to do it. So it's just, it's just a matter of where you are 10 months from now. Think about where you were 10 months ago and where you are now. So it's like that time you could devote to, excelling. So surely, if you're thinking about it, coding, if you never tried it before, give it a shot, and then you never know. And just any other tech stuff. I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, I love that you said that because it's so true. Sometimes we get in our own way and we think that taking a short, in the grand scheme of things, 10 months being a short period of time, but it feels like in the moment it will be forever. But the beautiful thing about it is you committed yourself to that 10 months, and now, like you said, your career is shifted and changed for the rest of your life, and now you have that older self of you to thank for your commitment early on. So I think that's such a great point to highlight. I want to shift gears just a little bit for the sake of time. I want to go in depth. I'm going to throw my first question to Matthias. I know we can all agree that tech is a predominantly white male space. So I want to ask, what has it been as a Latinx engineer in a company like Twitter?
Yeah, so I think my experience is slightly different, probably because I'm in Europe, and the impact of being Latin in Europe can be slightly different, but at the same time, it's challenging to be like a non-native speaker in any kind of company when you try to say something and it doesn't come out on the best way. So there are a lot of challenges here with regards to communication, and that's probably very important. I think one of the struggles I had, not particularly here on Twitter, I would say, but throughout my career that I moved from Argentina elsewhere, is that my university, no one knows about it. It's not that it's a well-resonated university that everyone knows about. So you have to make your own way, and you have to prove yourself probably a lot more than maybe some other one that has already that background and that title. That means a lot. I think that has been my main concern. So I'm usually open on LinkedIn for reach outs from people from my background that actually try to apply for jobs abroad. So I usually try to maybe help them or maybe make some connections and bring the network, because that was the hardest step for me once I wanted to move on and try an experience abroad. It's like, how do I make the connection if I don't know anyone? So I think that's a bit of my experience.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's relatable. I went to a university that is not one of the top. I went to the University of Rhode Island. It's not, the Ivies and anything like that. So I can relate to that, where it feels that you might have a little bit of a disadvantage, or having a language barrier like that can definitely feel like a disadvantage. But I think Twitter has done a great job, especially as more that we decentralize and have opportunities globally for us all to connect and stay connected in that way. I want to jump to, let's see, I'm going to go to Kenny and ask, has Twitter really supported you? Do you feel supported as a Latinx engineer? Is there anything, maybe a particular experience you could highlight where you've either felt supported or maybe had a struggle with that in particular?
Yeah, so definitely a very big component is that coming from a Latinx country such as Mexico, especially growing up there, there's a very big sense of community, right? Like, it's just how our culture is. So finding Twitter allies at Twitter really helped me find my people. And sometimes professionally, it's not that really relevant to share some cultural backgrounds, but definitely it's really important that you have some kind of resonating board that you can talk to someone that has more or less the same cultural background as you, just to discuss things that your work has presented to you. And that can help you navigate from people that have had more experience on the field and also share your common cultural background to tell you if what you're feeling is actually something that they felt when they finally moved towards the tech industry, et cetera, et cetera. And it also helps to find some of the things that you celebrate back home to be represented officially in a company, right? So, for example, during September, we have like the Hispanic Heritage Month, and we just talk about all of these like Latin countries' independence days, revolutions, our cultural backgrounds, our kind of food. We also talk about like how we celebrate the holidays during December in each of these countries. So it really helps you feel connected back home, even when you are not physically located in one of these countries.
Awesome. I know you touched on Twitter Alas, which for those who don't know, is a business resource group that we have here at Twitter. Christian, are you able to jump in to, maybe speak about your experience with Twitter Alas, and maybe speak on some of the opportunities that you've either been able to have involvement with, whether it be events, and also do you know if interns are able to become involved with Twitter Alas and similar business resources groups?
Yeah. So I have to point out that Twitter, being part of Twitter Alas has been, I guess, the biggest part of my Twitter employment so far. Like Kenny said, being able to find your community, something that I find really beautiful about, like, I think the Latinx community is that we celebrate like each other's accomplishments. Like, at least it's kind of funny, but like for like something like the Encanto movie that's Colombian rooted, but like people like Mexican and Chilean and Venezuelan, they're like all super like into it and supporting, and like you find so much people to rally behind each other's cultures. And it's so like it's like we're different but we're similar, and we just like, it just feels like we have each other's back. And like for example, so on Thursdays I do like a Wordle in Espanol thing that I host on the Slack channel. That's a lot of fun. And it's just a way to blow off steam, because we work really hard, and then you just go on the Slack and find some relevant memes and laugh it off and laugh at some coworkers. But yeah, I think anyone who is in Twitter, even interns, I believe, can for sure join the BRGs. And yeah, like Kenny said, I think it's been a huge part of my social interaction, even as we're coming back to like normative social interactions. Still mostly kind of virtual mix up, but I think Twitter Atlas has been a major part of that for me personally. It's been one of my favorite parts.
Awesome, that's great. Yeah, I feel like the theme I'm sensing all around is just this feeling of community, which I can definitely say Twitter is super unique with that. The opportunities they provide for us to feel like we're working in a community, regardless of where you sit. I think we're in this virtual world that we're in now. It can be sometimes challenging to not feel like you have your neighbors and your coworkers right next to you, but to know that we have communities and spaces like Twitter Alas to actually to meet others and connect with others who can relate to our experiences, both work related and not work related. I think that's what makes Twitter so important and so special to me as well. So I appreciate your perspective. I want to touch a bit on as well wellness within our community at Twitter. I know that has become a major topic point across the board when you think about your career journeys, thinking about your time as a university student as well. What would be some of the things that you are able to do to practice your mental health boundaries, physical health boundaries, anything on that nature? What does Twitter support you with in terms of building your sense of wellness within yourself? Whoever wants to answer that, but maybe I'll jump to Matthias first.
Yeah, interesting question. So there are a bunch of things and resources. So there are some tools like the wellness tools that we are provided. And of course, we have some wellness budget as well, which helps a lot. I think one of the best thing here in London for now is actually being able to go to the office and have a very deconstructed space. So the office here in London actually has a whole new area just to chill and have a proper restaurant and a proper place where we can have more informal conversations and maybe rest a bit after a long day. Also, I think transparency is something that is encouraged a lot. and being able to speak up and being able to express yourself on what's going on. I think that's the best tools I found so far with regards to this.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Cool. I want to get some perspective as well. I know we only have a couple more minutes left of this portion of the panel. I want to ask if y'all have any interview tips for the folks listening, coming close to their time for applying and potentially interning. What interview tips would you have for them, regardless of, I guess, the field that they're going into, but specific to, your roles as well? Kenny, if you'd like to go first.
Yeah, sure. So this is actually something that I'm very passionate about. So the first thing that I would mention is that don't be nervous. You have to remember that whenever you are interviewing, you and the interview panel are actually on the same side. You think about it, like you want to get the job, and the interviewers want to hire you. Like we are actually working towards the same goal. This is not one of those situations where they want to see you failing. They actually want to see you succeeding. So you have to really tackle this kind of opportunity by seeing that we're actually on the same side. That's the first thing. The second thing is bring yourself to the interview. I have found that whenever you're passionate about the technology, whenever you are able to actually speak of your mind, is whenever you will be the most clear about your ideas. And at the end of the day, that's what they want to see in the interview. They want to see how you express your ideas, how you actually tackle problems, and how it will be to work with you. So that's a very important thing. And the third thing that I would mention is that you need to remember that this is a two-way street. You are also interviewing the company to see the culture. So you have to really see if it's a good fit for you to work with the interviewers and also ask questions. When the interviewers ask you at the very end of the interviews, if you have any questions, it's not just a formality. We're actually expecting you to ask very interesting questions to see if you actually understand where you're getting into. For example, something that I mentioned to my candidates, more senior candidates, is that if they haven't asked me about the on-call situation by the end of the interview, I ask them like, are you not interested or knowing about this particular thing? Or is it that you are shy? Because if the candidate does ask me about those kind of things that are a little bit uncomfortable, I get the understanding and the signaling that that candidate really understands what they're signing up for. And normally I have a very good answer for them because work-life balance in my team and the whole company actually is very healthy. But just getting that question really signals to me that they understand. So also try to make all the questions that you can think of. Those are my tips.
Those are awesome, awesome tips. Thank you, Kenny. I could have used some of those in my time also interviewing. No, but
Sure.
definitely appreciate your perspective. I know we're kind of at the end of the panel portion. We want to make sure we have enough time to get the audience Q&A. So I'm going to pass it over to Amber in a moment. I just want to thank you all again. Thanks to the panelists as well for being willing to answer my questions that I have for you, but we'll jump into some of the audience questions now.
Thank you so much, Elena. Thank you to this panelist, Way Up. Shout out to all of our students who are on the line today. Man, you guys are hitting us with so many questions, and thank you. That means that you are curious, eager, and excited about an opportunity. I'm going to go through some of the questions that I snagged from the chat, and apologies if your question does not get answered. It was literally over 40, and we're only going to be able to answer about 3 to 4 right now for the sake of time. But that just means come back to more of our Way Up Twitter events to learn more, to get more questions answered. Follow us on social platforms, and maybe you can also get some of your questions or content answered. Also, these questions are going to be veered towards our panelists. Jordan's going to come back on, and he's going to answer all your questions about the interview process, what roles we're hiring for, what to look out for. We know you guys are excited about that. But let's kick into some questions here. So let's start. This question has been a favorite. I saw it a few times in the chat. But for the panelists, and it's open, what is your favorite part about working at Twitter? You might have covered this, but like just give us a high level of what is something that really stands out to you about working at Twitter. Anyone can answer this question.
Okay, I'll start. Twitter is the absolute best job I've ever had. I love that the work that I'm doing, the code that I'm doing is reaching millions of users worldwide. It's pretty awesome to go on the website and find the fixes I've made are live. So you feel like you're having an impact and part of the public conversation. Another thing would be just how well Twitter takes care of its employees. We have some crazy perks. We have remote work mostly. We have like just crazy amount of resources that I don't want to get into too much, but just for example, it's very flexible. Last year on short notice, I had to fly to Colombia for a family matter, and I was able to work from there for the few days that I needed to work from there. And it's very understanding and super flexible and just super human first. You're a lot, you could take a mental health day, no one's gonna flip. It's really just about it's about you first, you as a person. People care about you. And I like to joke that I had a bit of Stockholm syndrome when I started, because I was so unused to being cared for so personally and professionally, that I was like I was blown away. So it takes a minute to get used to if you're coming from unfortunate traditional work settings, but it's just awesome.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that. In addition, this question is also open to the floor. What have been some of your biggest challenges that some of you have faced in your role?
Yeah, I think on my end, what I could say is that staying up to date. So I went to the university maybe a bit long ago, and the way the university was structured was not really much up to date. So a lot of things with regards to machine learning and new concepts that came out after my university time, I had to adapt because they became something that is used pretty much everywhere. So one of my previous jobs, I had to start working on some fraud detection system, and I had very little or to no experience using machine learning. So I think one of the biggest challenges there was actually learning from scratch on my own time, and trying to find resources and trying to find different ways to stay active and stay up to date on everything that's going on in our field.
That's valid. Thanks for answering that one, Mateus. Appreciate it. All right, our next question is geared to Alana. Going back to your question about the topic of being a field that is male dominated, Alana, what are some of the biggest challenges, biggest fears that you've managed to overcome in your time as a Tweep? How did you overcome them and grow from them and stand on your own?
Well, first of all, thank you for the question. Very thoughtful question. Yeah, I mean, I can relate to what Christian said. I feel like when I came in, I had imposter syndrome times a million. I've come from spaces completely different than tech prior to being at Twitter in my career. So coming in, I think one thing I was really afraid of was just not being respected and not being taken seriously. Being in a field that is very male dominated. But I quickly realized when I got to Twitter that there are some strong, ambitious women in this company that are killing it, doing incredible things. And I think it brought it down for me to make it feel like that's within my grasp. So having that sort of inspiration of others, knowing that I can have those conversations, that those people are accessible and willing to talk about their journey as well. I knew that I wasn't the only person that was feeling that way. And even within my own team, I think a lot of us came in feeling the same. So knowing that, there's a space for us to have these difficult conversations, I felt like I was quickly able to just be authentic and open up in that way. And once I called it out, it kind of went away a little bit. That fear started to subside, and I started to just take more initiative, and seeing that positive, I guess you could say, affirmation come from some of the initiatives I've taken, some of the projects I've led, being a part of events like this have proven to me that these opportunities are possible, they're achievable for anybody, and I most definitely didn't think it would be the case for me early on. So having these opportunities now show me that I can overcome any other fears that may come along the way as well.
Thank you for such a detailed answer. And thank you for the question. All right, we have 2 more questions, and this one is again open to the panel. What advice do you have for a CSI major who has a bucket of knowledge rather than one main skill set? And the knowledge ranges from development, security, business. What roles at Twitter would you say would be best fit for a CIS major to apply for?
Sorry, I don't really have a lot of background of what a CIS
Okay.
major does.
It's fair. All right, sorry. Christian, this question was for you. Did you have any background in CS before the boot camp, or was that your first deep dive? How was your ramp up to joining Twitter?
I had absolutely zero computer science background before the boot camp. Basically, how I fell upon it was during some gaming with my friend, playing Fortnite for hours during a pretty depressive time in my period in my life. He's a software engineer, and I explained how I wanted to be in the job that was creative, like to fulfill like that musician aspect, the creative need that I have. And then they explained to me how software engineering is a very creative job. You can still be very creative and kind of create the tools and things that you want. And so that's kind of what kind of led me into trying it out. But ramp up at Twitter has been very, I think, at my pace, understanding. And it's like it really like before my start date, I was just ramping up. I'm like, all right, it's gonna like hit the floor running. I was so amped up and ready to go. And then as it started, it was super slow. There was flight school, and then even like after flight school, just like learning with my team, it was very, very at pace. The coding boot camp was so much more faster than my actual experience at Twitter. It's been super, super at pace. Yeah, I got super lucky and blessed.
Well, we're happy to have you. Well, that wraps up our panel. Thank you. Oh, Q&A, we're about to pass that. Thank you, Mateus. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Elena. Thank you, everyone. Kenny, for joining us. We really appreciate you. We encourage all of our participants to stay involved, follow us at Twitter Careers. Continue to check the Way Up website for open roles. But I know what you all came here for is to identify what's the best route, avenue, best practices for applying for a job here and what we have going on. So I'm going to kick it off to Jordan. Next slide. And Jordan's going to tell you about the application process and how to come forward with your best A game. Thank you again for our panelists. Thank you for our interpreters. We really appreciate all you all today.
Howdy, y'all. I loved hearing the panel. Shout out to all of you guys. And I've been reading some of your questions in the chat. So I'm going to try to address as many as I can in like a general sense. Working on the recruiting team, I think I have a pretty good idea. But before we get into like the meat and potatoes of all that, I want everybody, if you have your phone near you, go follow at Twitter U. That's Twitter and then the letter U, like university. That's kind of going to be like your one-stop shop for like resume tips, application deadlines. That's also where we will link new jobs. That's not the only place, but that's where they'll be posted as well. And you can learn much more about the company. There'll be other panels. You'll have panels about like being Black at Twitter, being gay at Twitter, being a woman at Twitter, being someone who's religious at Twitter. There's so many different panels that we post, and we always invite, prospective interns and early grads to come in. Now, if you want to actually apply for a position at Twitter, you're going to go to careers.twitter.com, and there will be a button down below that says early career. That's where you're going to start. Now, it can get a little bit tricky from here, depending on where you are in your journey. You've heard us say the terms early career intern and early career intern. I've seen the chat, and I see a lot of people saying, oh, well, what if I have 2 years of experience? What if I didn't go to college? Here's how it breaks down. So an intern here at Twitter is someone who has 1 year of school left to complete. For lack of better terms, keep it simple. You're a junior and you have 1 senior year left to complete. You have not entered into that year yet. That would be an intern. A new grad would be someone who is in their last year of school. You are actively in your last year and you're looking for your first job after graduation. That would be what we call a new grad. Early career, which is what I think a lot of you guys would fall into the realm of, like if you went to a coding boot camp and you didn't go to school, or you decided to, study marketing, you didn't have like a full 4-year or 2-year degree. That's someone who graduated from school and has 0 to 2 years work experience. So again, that's going to be intern, someone who has 1 year left to complete, new grad, someone who is about to graduate in that same year, and then early career is someone who has 0 to 2 years left to complete. Now for interns, we, just like other companies, we hire for, spring cohorts, summer and fall. For new grads, we do that. I mean, for early career, we do that all year. And same for new grads, we do that year round. If you have been in your career and you're just getting started, you can literally go to that link I said earlier, careers.twitter.com, and you can look for an early career position year round. For internships, they are going to be 12 weeks. And I saw this question earlier. They are paid, y'all. We're not going to be stingy with the coins. You're going to get paid. Not only that, but you still get the paid time off. You get the holidays. And my favorite personal benefit at Twitter is called the day of rest. We get one Monday every month off. That's 12 extra 3-day weekends in a year. Like, so many trips you could take. And that's not just a full-time benefit. That's also extended to our interns. It's really, really dope. The whole company just shuts down. Now, people always ask, someone asked Kenny this question earlier and he gave a bomb answer for it. I don't know if I can top it. But what does Twitter look for in a candidate? I always tell people, we look for people who are going to be in tune with our mission of trying to drive the public conversation. And also we like people who are going to get active outside of your daily work. Everybody on this panel has mentioned Twitter allies. They've mentioned, being involved in other panels. They've mentioned being involved in side projects. I'm involved in so many things at Twitter. We look for people who are going to do that. Yeah, you're going to be coding. Yeah, you're going to be, doing marketing campaigns. But outside of that, what are you going to be getting active in at Twitter? Because that's culture here. It's not just you come and you do your job and you dip, you get your coin and you dip. It's what are you going to be doing that's going to be contributing to the culture at the company. My biggest interview tip for anybody is always going to be, why do you want to join Twitter? You need to have a good answer why. I've sat into so many interviews and I've met with so many candidates, and we asked them why they want to join Twitter, and they say, oh yeah, I want to get into tech. You can do that anywhere. Oh, I want to get into marketing. You can go to Google and do that. You can go to Spotify and do that. Why do you want to come here? I can't tell you, no one on this panel can tell you why you should join Twitter. We can tell you why we did, but you need to have an honest look at yourself and say, I want to go to Twitter because of X, Y, and Z. And when that question pops up in the interview, you need to be boom, boom. Whether you're an engineer, whether you're going into policy, marketing, communications, it doesn't matter. Have a good reason why you want to join Twitter. Now, the actual interview process. I'm not going to lie, it can be a doozy, but we've all went through it. So if we can succeed, you can too. No matter what route you want to go into, it's always going to start with us screening your resume. And then if we think you're a match, you're going to get a call from one of our recruiters. That recruiter is basically going to have a 30-minute conversation with you and just assess your skills on a very, very high level. It's not going to go into too deep, but it's going to be very high level about, okay, what have you been up to? What did you study? Why do you want to join Twitter? And then if they think you're a match, you're going to go to the hiring manager. That hiring manager is also going to do the same thing. 30 minutes, sit down and ask you deeper about your skills, but also those behavior questions. Ask us, they're going to give you questions like, tell me about a time when. When's the last time you did this? Behavior questions, but it's going to be very high level. Now, if you pass that, this is where it kind of splits off. Everybody does some type of assessment. When I wanted to get hired into recruiting, I had to do an assessment. If you're an engineer, you'll have to do a technical phone screen, which is basically coding. If you're going to go into policy, you have to do some type of assessment. Everybody has to do something. So you're going to have to do some type of assessment, which is usually the next step. If you pass that assessment, then you go into your final round of interviews. And if you get to this round, I always tell people, we want to give you the job. You just got to come get it. Like they mentioned earlier, go in, be yourself. We don't want robots. We don't use the term like cultural fit. It's cultural add. We're not a cult. We want people who are going to teach us something new and bring something better to the company. So you're going to go into this final round of interviews, which are going to be anywhere from 2 to 4 hours with 4 to 8 people. It can be a lot. But my favorite thing about Twitter is that no one here is trying to intimidate you out of any job. We want you to succeed. And the way we get you to succeed is that if you feel comfortable going into your interviews. As someone who has put many interviews on Kenny's calendar, everything he said is true. Go in and be yourself and you'll be fine. And then my last little point is that, as you guys are aware, Twitter is completely hybrid. So you can work from literally anywhere, no matter where you want to go. If you do decide to do an internship, early career, move, or wherever you want to go, if you do decide to join us at Twitter, you can join from anywhere in the world, but you can also join from a city that has an office like San Francisco, New York, San Jose, Toronto, Chicago, Tokyo, London. We're everywhere. And if you do decide to go to one of those offices, I highly recommend going into it. You can't tell, but I'm in the New York office right now. but those are the epicenter of Twitter's culture. And you'll get to meet so many people, and it's actually going to make you feel like you're at a company that you love. Now, that's all I got for that. But I saw some of y'all like, okay, I'm looking for an internship like right now. So Amber dropped in the chat 3 positions that we are actively hiring for right now. Now, if you don't fall into one of these 3 positions, no worries. Summer internship hiring is coming to a wrap, but those new grad positions are always up. Those early career positions are always up, so go check those out. But the first position that we are actively looking for, this is going to be a PhD new grad who has done an internship in machine learning. So if you have a PhD or a master's degree and you have experience in machine learning, we want you. Go to that link and apply now. Now, the other one is going to be a machine learning internship. So if you've done a project or something during your college career where you know something about machine learning, we want you to go for it. So again, the first one is going to be if you have a PhD and you've done an internship in machine learning. The second one is going to be a machine learning internship and you've done some type of machine learning during your college career. And then the last one is just a backend software engineer internship. So that's what we're looking for. If any of those positions fit you, apply today because our hiring deadline is April 29th. Otherwise, the other tip I always give people, unfortunately, I can't tell you when we're going to post, postings, but just keep checking the career board, keep checking LinkedIn. When I wanted to work at Twitter, I was refreshing the career board literally every day. Keep refreshing, keep checking, and once something pops up, go for it.
Thank you all for joining us today. We hope you gathered some information. Thank you to our amazing panelists. Thank you, Eric, for sending me your email address. Thank you for all that participated in our trivia today. Hopefully we'll swag you up. We will tweet you later. Like Jordan said, don't forget to follow Twitter U and see you at some future Way Up events. Thank you all for being here. Bye, panelists. Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.